Right fellas, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we are off to engine services in Newcastle with the Cosworth engine that I paid 5 grand for. I picked it up from London and I'm doing a 500 brake horsepower build. Now what we need to do is we need to finish, the crank is pretty much out of the block. There's just one more plate we need to take off to get the crank out. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the crank away from the block, get in the car and head through Newcastle. So this shaft here is what spins your distributor off your timing belt, telling the engine when to spark. So we'll put this somewhere safe with the bits what we've just took off.
So to remove this plate I'm getting off, I need to take this pulley off and I can't get it off. Now Gordon at Engine Services says he can remove the pulley so we can get the plate off. So I'm going to leave it on the crank until we get to Gordon's. You can see the plate here from the top side where it's still in position.
These shims here, right, these are what stop the end float of the crank. So it stops the crank going this way in the block. So this is the main problem bearing. This has got some scoring on the bearing. I can't really feel it on the crank, but this is why we're going to see Gordon, see what he recommends, see if we need the crank grinding, where they'll put some oversized shells in. They'll take about 1/4 millimetre off all these diameters, or whether that just maybe it's got away with polishing, or even with a bit of luck just a new set of bearings. So hopefully now the crank will just lift straight out the block. There we go. Right fellas, I'm at Engine Services in Newcastle. I'm here with Gordon. We're going to have a look at the 3 main parts of my engine, which is the crank, the block and the head. So Gordon's got the crank here. We're going to put in, this is a crank grinder, mate?
Yeah, it's a crank grinder, yeah.
So we'll stick it in, we're going to check for it, see if
what we'll do, we'll stick it in, we'll clock it up, make sure it's straight and it's not bent, because they do sometimes bend because with cranks. I think this will be okay, to be honest. And we'll check the sizes. We'll hopefully just give it a polish.
You think we'll make our way with a polish?
I think we'll make it away with a polish. So we'll measure up, we'll see.
Do you polish it with the wheel?
No.
No.
You purely grind with the wheel.
Right.
You polish with, we've got a initial there and sanding belts.
Right.
So we'll get it in, we'll clock it up and see what we're like. So I'm going to put this in backwards, purely to save taking the bearing out the back.
Right.
Because you cannot put it in, if I put it in that way around, the centre of the machine is going to sit on the bearing and it don't run right. So we'll just pop it in the opposite way around and that'll do the job.
Few fellas don't know as well, I'm actually a machinist, so this is all quite interesting to me to see how this is done. So if you've got a clock there.
Yeah, so we're just going to dial it in.
What do you clock it into, like a thou or something?
You tend to get, especially flywheel end, you want the flywheel end within half a thou.
Half a thou. And if you're wondering what half a thou is, a piece of paper is about 4 thou, like the thickness of a sheet of paper. So you're going to like 1/8 of a sheet of paper, which is very small.
Right, see there we're running about, we've good 10th thou out.
10th thou. So are you clocking the chuck there? You're moving the chuck?
I'm moving the chuck, yeah.
Right.
So what some machines have got, they've got like a 4-jaw chuck.
That's what I was
You
expecting.
can adjust the chucks, but this you move the chuck on the hub.
Right.
So we're getting closer, we're down to a couple of thou there. Right, so you see there now, that's running within half a thou.
It's about half a thou, isn't it?
Yeah. And we'll come to this end. I would expect this end to be absolutely bang on. If you're working off a good centre, you're normally pretty much bang on.
Bang on that one, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a bit of dirt on there, which is making it jump round a little bit, but that's absolutely bang on.
And then do you check the middle?
And we'll come to the middle. And what we want to see here, I want to see this pretty much bang on as well.
Oh, bang on. So that crank is not bent.
That shaft is perfectly straight.
So we've clocked this end, we'll clock that end in.
We'll clock that end in.
Clock that end in.
Want a good centre there, which is perfect, and we'll bang on in the middle.
So no bend in the crank?
No bend in the crank. You normally only get bend in these when you knock the big end out. It's normally number 4 big end you knock out.
Right. So what we're going to do now?
We'll go on, we'll check the size.
Right.
Basically the same engines, a 1600 Pinto, so the book covers everything from like a 1600 Capri, Escort Cosworth, Sierra Cosworth, right through.
Transits and everything.
Transits, everything, yeah.
P100s.
Yeah. So if we go to the next page, it covers, that's all your engine codes.
Right.
The Cosworth code will be there somewhere. So basically what it gives you a size, it's not the cleanest book in the world. That's your size there, so it gives you a top and a bottom size.
Right, so we've got 51.98 millimetres
to 52.
So it's less than a thou, but you work in imperial.
I work in imperial, yeah.
Right.
So that's for your big ends, your main bearings, you come over here, MB, main bearings, in metric 56.970 to 56.990.
Right, I think I measured this with a vernier and I think it is slightly small.
Yeah. We can check it with micrometer. A vernier is good for giving you a guideline.
Aye, somewhere near.
For measuring ovality and that, really you need to use a micrometer. The other thing is you need to make sure your micrometer is always checked. We check these once a week.
With a slip or something?
Yeah, with just with a slip gauge, yeah.
So have you set the mic there to
I haven't even looked at the mic yet. I was just measuring to see what we've got.
So you've measured one, then set it just...
Yeah, and we've got 2 inches, 46.5 thou.
46, so it's slightly under.
I believe 46.5 is just on bottom size.
Right, bottom size.
So
which, to be fair, it could be from you.
Yeah,
Plus,
yeah.
I mean, if the apprentice has been on the job or whatever, when this crank was made...
The way to tell is any ovality in it?
Right.
The answer is no, because the shaft wears obviously top to bottom, because
the loads.
when it fires, your load is on the top of the pin. So the shaft doesn't necessarily wear round, it'll wear oval.
Right.
So I would say that shaft has come out of the factory like that.
And if it was oval, you would just grind it?
Yes.
Take 1/4 milli off?
Yes, you'll go down to 0.25 of a mil, yeah. You can go down to 0.25, 0.5. You can even go 0.75 and 1 mil, but I would never recommend it on a Cosworth.
Right. So what would you recommend with this crank now? Just leave it as it is? Put
These big ends, I would say we'll polish the big ends, we're fine there. We'll check the mains and see what we've got. I know you're concerned about if it's scored on this back one. So we'll just give that a light polish and see what we'll find.
Right.
So first off, we'll measure the size. So it's nice and round.
Good.
No ovality in it.
Good.
And we've got 2.243. The main should be 2.2429, so 43 to 44.7 to 43.7, sorry. So the shaft is bang on. It's just on bottom size, but it's within tolerance.
Good.
So hopefully...
Good news in there.
Good news, hopefully we'll just polish that, because I hate
So how much will you polish off? Just like 1/2 thou maybe?
Not even 1/2 thou.
Not even 1/2 thou?
Not even 1/2 thou.
Are you literally just taking the high spots off?
Yeah, I'm just going to use a used belt. I'm not even going to put... I've got a linisher here, but I'm not even going to use the linisher. I'm going to do it by hand. We'll do this back one first, because that's the one which is concerning a bit. Well, this is where I hit the wall with this belt snaps.
Has it happened before?
Once or twice.
So you're not even going that fast there really for polishing, are you?
Right, and see we have still got some marks there. We'll just go along the mole, and I always stick a different belt on that one, just have a look. Because I believe you want to go about 500 brake. Well,
that's the plan.
Yeah.
A lot of people are advising us against 500. A lot of people are saying about 354 for Cosworth YB, but
354 is nice.
Aye.
Depends if you're going 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive.
I think I've only got 2-wheel drive cars at the minute, so I'd like something 4-wheel drive. I do like 4-wheel drive power the way it comes on.
Personally, I think 500's a bit much for a rear-wheel drive car.
For rear-wheel drive, I think it is.
Especially, unless you're a real good driver.
I'm not.
Ah, well. I think I used to be half decent, but as you get older, I think you lose it.
You lose it a bit.
You either lose a bit or you get a few more brains, maybe. Right, so you can see there, we've still got a couple of little marks.
It's not shiny though, isn't it? Like you've took the dullness away.
What we'll do, we'll just stick a new belt on it just by hand.
So this was the problem.
This back one was the problem one, yeah. See, if you put a new belt on with the linisher, it would take a couple of thou straight off. But just by hand, may just be enough to get their marks out. This is where you've got to make a decision whether you want it ground or not.
Right. See, the thing, it's never been ground this crank before, so it is a shame to grind it, isn't it? You were saying yourself it's a shame to grind like a new crank.
Personally, if that was my shaft, we're still bang on size. If that was my shaft, I would run it.
You would run it?
I would run it.
Because you got to remember as well, people who's watching, this, in theory, this should never ever touch the bearings because there's
always oil between it. And if you have got any little light scoring in there, all it's going to do is just going to fill with oil. It's just going to hold a bit of oil.
Right. Well, I'll leave that then.
Personally, if that was mine, I would leave it. We'll polish it again to make sure we're happy with them. But as I was saying, especially if you want to go big power, people don't like ground shafts, like standard shafts.
Bit stronger.
Yeah. Obviously,
bit more metal in it.
Yeah, a good standard shaft's always better than a reground shaft. I'm not putting a lot of weight on here.
No. So what kind of revs is this machine spinning at? About 100, 150 or something?
Yeah, it's variable speed. You can turn it up or down. So I can slow it right down.
Right.
So it's like a 2-speed gearbox, but it's variable speed as well. So for doing big ends, when you come to grind them, you put it into low gear like that. So that's flat out there.
In low gear?
In low gear.
Then set your grinding wheel away there?
Yeah. I'll show you in a minute. I'll set the wheel away and just show you how we would grind that if we needed to grind it, how we would do it.
Do you grind it dry or do you put oil on or coolant?
No, it's got a coolant on it all the time.
Like a water and oil mix?
Yeah. It used to be called white water. But
that's how I remember it, white water.
Yeah, it was white water. It used to stink after about a week. Whereas this now, it's like a new synthetic sort of coolant. Far better because it's got a green tinge to it, but it's kind of clear so you can see what you're doing when you grind. Whereas white water would cover the job and you wouldn't be able to see the...
It was like a milk, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was awful stuff. Right, so as you can see, I haven't removed any material off there. We're still bang on size.
So we've literally just polished it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Mate,
that's the best result I could have had for that crank.
Yeah. So I'm just going to polish your front oil seal house in there now. Yeah, I will be more than happy using that.
If you're happy, mate, I'm happy.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy using that.
Good. Excellent.
Right, so that's what pretty much done with that part of it. So are you going for long studs in this?
I don't know. Probably. But you don't do long studding, do you?
We don't do long studding, no. If you're going big power, sort of 500 brake, you'll need long studs. well, people recommend you need long studs.
The early touring cars, I was talking to Paul Linford.
Yeah.
The early touring cars didn't run long studs, but
No.
then eventually they went to it.
They went to it.
Probably it's because of head lift or whatever.
Yeah.
Head gaskets going. You think it's been bored at some point as well?
I've had a quick make before we started,
Quick
and I
measure
think it's been bored. I think it's 1/2 a mil oversized. We'll just double check it.
I was going to say, I think I got a bit over.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend doing with the block?
There again, it depends what power you decide to go for, what pistons you're going to buy. If you're going for standard Cosworth pistons, which are a mall piston, the neck size is 1 mil oversize. If you go for something Wasner's or Wiseco's or something like that, I think they'll do a 0.75.
Right.
Which is just another 0.25 a mil to come out. The bores is actually pretty good size anyway, so you could just hone it and put your pistons back with a set of rings.
Would you recommend honing it as it is now?
Yeah, we can stick the hone down, we'll have a look at the bores and see what it look like. We'll just run a bit of emery over the top and see what the face looks like.
Would you recommend skimming the face?
It depends what gaskets you're going to run. If you're going to run a Group A gasket, you tend just to clean the face and check it, make sure it's flat. If it's flat, just leave it.
How would you clean the face?
Just with emery tape,
right,
which I'm going to do now. If you're going to run a WRC gasket, which is like a multi-layer steel gasket, I would recommend you probably skim it because the faces have got to be perfect.
Right.
On both the head and the block.
Right.
But we'll just... Yeah, I would say this is going to need a skim anyway.
Right.
I've just run that over there and straight away you can
spots.
see there's a little bit hollow there, which is sort of right on the fire ring.
Right.
So we'll not even bother cleaning
Just
that
get
off.
that skimmed.
That's going to need a skim yet.
Right.
So, do you want to run the hone down it?
Whatever you think, mate.
I'll just
Whatever you think it needs.
Make sure my compressor's still turned on.
So we're going with a hand hone.
Yeah, we're going to go with a hand hone, which has just got a fine set of stones in. So you've got 2 stones, one on each side, 2 guides.
So that's the guide to keep it in the bore?
Yeah, just to keep it centralised. So you just drop it in, you wind your stones out.
So do you keep this bit here pressed against the block?
It doesn't have to be pressed against the block.
Because it's floating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just all floating anyway. So we're just going to put a bit of hone and oil in. So we'll just give them all a light hone. We'll give them a wipe out and have a look.
Difference already.
Yeah, the bores feel good, so I'm hoping.
I was going to say you could still see the horn marks, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. That hasn't done much at all since it was last machined by the looks of it.
So do you think this is taking anything out? Maybe it's a thou or something?
No.
No?
Probably not even quarter of a thou.
Not even quarter of a thou?
I haven't got a lot of tension on it, and I'm not honing the life out of it. And you find if your bores are pretty smooth anyway, you don't take much out. It's when your bores is rough, you hone it, you take quite a bit out because you hone the high spots off, basically. So should you be reboring a block, you rebore it and you'd normally bore about 2 thou tight. And then you hone your last 2 thou out.
Right.
So your last 2 thou gets rid of any...
Do you bore it with a fly, like a fly cut, like milling cutter?
I can show you what we'll bore it with.
Oh, there,
yeah, that's...
That is cutting tip there?
Yeah,
that's... the carbide edge on
that's not a cutting tip there, I've just squared the bottoms off. I'm putting 2 liners in this, so you bore them and you leave a step at the bottom.
For the liners
and you press the liner in to sit on it.
Right.
That's your boring tool.
It's got a little carbide end in it? Alright, just high speed stick?
Yeah.
Alright.
And then you just dress them up on a diamond lapper, that's all you do, you just lap them.
Alright.
We have got, that's the sort of thing you want about.
Carbide.
We use them just for roughing material out, you get a much better finish with one of the other tips.
Right.
That's done there with a carbide tip, that's just because it's just roughed out for liners.
Mate, this is interesting to me, this. As an engineer, I like to see stuff like this.
Used to be interesting to me. A long, long time ago. Right, so we've honed all them. We'll just
Give them a clean.
wipe out. And what we don't want to see is any nasty scores down them. There's a little mark down number 1, so I'm just going to give it a touch more, then we'll measure it up.
Little tick of
You
that.
see the mark down number 1 there?
We're here.
Yeah, see the scratch down it
Yep.
there?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That was me bashing pistons or something like that.
It may have been off a sharp ring when it's been put together. And I didn't give it a heavy horn, so we'll just give it a touch more, see if that comes out.
I think you might have got it there, mind.
Yeah, it's still
little.
just there, but we'll measure them up and then we'll take these daft gloves off and have a feel, see if we can feel it.
Is that what you're looking for mainly, to see if you can feel it then?
Yeah, if you can feel it where you nail it, it's kind of not good news.
Is that because oil will get past it or something?
It would, very, very little, it would pass a little bit of oil. You got your little mark
I've noticed there's a little...
midway down that one as well. The other two look fine. Right, that's about a thou oversized now.
So it was 1/2 mm oversized when I brought it in.
Yeah, and we're about a thou over what it should be to be at 0.5.
Right.
So I would say that's going to need a rebore.
It's going to need a rebore, is
Going
it?
to need a rebore, yeah. Which will get rid of them marks. I can't turn any more to get rid of them.
Right.
Because then the ball will be far too big. So I would go for a rebore on that.
Right.
And a set of pistons.
Shall
Like
I
I
leave
said
that way and we'll pick it
before,
up, I'll pick it up later or something?
yeah, you can do, yeah. I just need to know what pistons we're going to be using before we bore it.
Right, I've got no idea.
Right.
I'll get back to you on that.
Yes, do some homework on your pistons.
Right, cylinder head. This is the one thing I was a bit scared of attempting myself, taking all the...
Yeah,
Now there is a mark here. You can feel it indent where the water has been getting through into the head stud. You feel it? So that's going to need grinding, isn't it?
can.
Welding, sorry.
I think a lot of what you can feel there is also, you've still got a bit of gasket on there, which will probably make
Ah,
it feel worse
right.
than it actually is.
Right, I'm with you now.
I think it is low there, but
I think it is low.
the gasket will make it feel worse.
Do you think that's going to need welding?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so, isn't it? So it would be a shame to skim. I mean, I think that would need at least 0.75 of a milli, do you think, to get rid of that? Maybe even a milli?
It's not as deep as you think, but you wouldn't skim a good head just to get rid of that.
No. Would you weld it then?
Weld it and skim it, yeah.
Right.
So I think we'll give it a pressure test. We'll strip it down first.
Right.
Important thing we'll use is try and remember, don't just flip them over and dump them on the face, otherwise you could bend them valves.
Right.
Now, you've got a couple of valves open, so always use a set of stands. If you haven't got stands, worst case, use a couple of bits of wood or something.
To rest it on.
Yeah. So that's there now to see if we can't bend any valves. A little bit of rust on them.
I know, I
cams as well.
noticed. I know.
They'll probably polish, to be fair.
Are they the standard cams? I think they are, aren't they?
Normally, if cams are performance cams, it's normally stamped on the back. Even if they've been reprofiled, Kent and paper, they always tend to stamp them on the back.
I've got some pretty, like, race type cams in my 3-door Cosworth.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's them, but the engine feels quite low down, quite lethargic compared to my SAF, which has got standard cams in.
Yeah.
The SAF seems to drive a lot nicer than my 3-door, so I'm thinking of maybe putting some standard cams back in my 3-door.
Yeah. And what people used to do back in the day, now tuning's changed quite a lot now with the modern electronics and that. People used to put a high lift cam in the inlet side and leave a standard exhaust cam. Used to do quite a bit of porting on them back in the day. So you used to open the inlet ports up, high lift cam like a BD 14 in the inlet. So you used to get more air in and force the air out quicker through the standard ports, which would spin the turbos up quicker.
All right.
That was always the idea behind it.
And did it must have worked?
Yeah, it used to work, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I've built a few engines with sort of
Do you do
500
pot and polish
brake.
and stuff like that?
I used to. To be honest, I just haven't got time now.
Right.
It can take you, to do a good porting job on a Cosworth head, it can take you 30 hours.
Really?
Yeah, it's...
That is a long time, that now.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
it's a lot of work.
Aye.
Um,
And if you're charging like, I don't know, 50 quid an hour for your time.
yeah, well, yeah. I used to charge something like 400 quid for them.
Did ya?
350, 400 quid, so we were doing a lot of work for the money you were getting.
I got a lot of
But
value
now
for
with modern
money.
CNCs, I mean, everybody just CNC
Uh-huh.
supports on them, which is a far better way to go. Right, we'll get them cams whipped out.
So you think them cams might go again, even with a little bit of rust?
Yeah,
or
we can give them a little polish, but I think they probably will, to
bit
be
of
honest.
splash bright or something on them?
Even just fine tape that I've just used on the crank there. Right, so first off, we'll whip them front pulleys off.
Do you know what it is? I was absolutely fine stripping the engine, but for the head, for some reason, I was a bit daunted about.
Right.
I don't know if it's because of the springs and everything. I was just a bit, ooh. Take your trays off your microwave, mates.
No, it's a trays off my daughter who works in a factory where they make them, and there all the seconds I get dozens of them.
Do ya?
So normally you just tap these and normally just come off
Nice
straight
there,
off.
isn't it?
Yeah. Just watch your keys don't fall out, because sometimes they're slack and you fall out and you lose them.
Is it the same size key through on the crank and everything?
Yes, I believe they all use the same key on the crank, the auxiliary pulley and the cams, if I remember rightly. One thing, remember when you put this back together, right, there's no threads in that one before we've started.
Really? It's stripped?
Yeah, there's no threads in that.
So I need a helicoil.
So that needs, we don't use helicoils, we use
Right.
time certs.
Right, what's the time cert then?
A time cert is, it's made by Worth. You'll remember Worth off some of Paul's touring cars. They're sponsored by Worth. So the time certs are time cert kits there. So what you do is, obviously this is a 10mm one, but you put a solid steel
Oh, right.
insert in instead of helicoils are like
That's
a way, like a spring.
Like a spring. Like
Yeah,
a compressed spring.
yeah.
Right.
Well, these are a solid steel insert. So we've got a full range of them from 6mm, right, well 5mm right through to 14mm.
What's that, like an M5 or M6 or something?
They're
on?
M6, so that's an M6 insert there.
So what size is that now across the OD? Like 10mm or something?
No, it's M6 on the inside, and I think they're pretty near M8 on the outside. Worth are a little bit crafty, they don't use a standard thread on the OD.
Oh, so you've got to get their gear.
Yeah, so you've got to use their inserts and their taps. So if you break a tap, you've got to buy one off Worth. You kind of just go to
eBay or
and buy
whatever.
one, yeah. Yeah,
But the
you
taps
actually
on it
see
too.
there's no threads at all in that tool.
Oh, right, aye. Fully stripped, that one, isn't it?
Yeah. That one's still tight. That one's still tight. What I was going to say to you was, you've got to remember when you put these back on, you need a little bit of sealer just under them edges.
Right. To stop the
So
leak.
there was a groove in it there. So obviously you need to clean that groove out and you need a little bit of sealer in there. Just a smear. Just to stop you getting an oil leak out the front. And them springs, that one's actually in wrong.
Really?
Yeah. I'll just show you when we pop a cam out.
Do you know what it is? It's quite daunting when you, like someone like yourself who builds these all the time. Like all the little tips and tricks what you need to know. Like it's kind of putting us off rebuilding it myself because I'm bound to do something wrong and I could just...
I can keep you right if you're stuck when you put it together. See, somebody's put a load of seal around the top there as well.
Mate, the amount of silicon in the bottom of this engine when I took the bits was unbelievable.
There's nothing wrong with silicon in moderation, but you know, you don't put silicon right round the seal like that. There's no need for it.
Did you see the sump when I took it off?
I didn't, to be honest, no.
Oh mate, it was like a little afro on the sun pickup.
Oh, was it?
On the oil pickup, aye.
And little collars just come off there. That's the other thing to watch for. This little O-ring goes in there, see?
Oh, it's tiny that as well, man, isn't it?
You know, normally these O-rings, if I can get it off, if I can find that blade I was using.
These one here.
All this seals for is to stop the oil going down that inside diameter and leaking out behind the pulley.
Right.
You normally find when you take these off, they are brittle, and they'd normally that should be an O-ring.
Oh, aye.
That should be a rubber O-ring. How brittle it go.
Just snapped.
Yeah, that one will be the same. It's a common thing. So
Right.
brittle, unbelievable.
So that was originally just a rubber O-ring.
That's
Now
just a
it's
rubber O-ring, and it's just went to
plastic.
plastic. See, somebody's had them. Somebody's obviously had the heading bits, and they've put them probably old seals back in with sealer. Now them there, they're like a circlip. Now the joint in the circlip should always go at the top.
Right. Is that for the oil?
Yes,
To stop the oil
just for
getting
the
out?
oil, to stop the oil getting out.
So obviously at the highest point there'd be less oil.
They've been put in the wrong position as well. But
Is that a tip of the trade, or is it just a common knowledge, like a kind of common knowledge thing with
it's
engine
kind of
builders?
something you just pick up over. Obviously, I've been building engines for nearly 40 years. Cosworth engines since they were sort of 2-year-old. Right, we'll just crack these off. But what you want to be doing is crack them off evenly.
Right.
If you just buzz all the caps off one end and you've got, see how them valves is pretty much open, your followers is on there,
Right.
you could snap the cam.
Bend it.
It'll snap it, it'll not bend, it'll snap.
Right.
So just back them off gently.
You're doing like half a turn each one or something?
Yeah, just basically back them off. What you would normally do, if you're not experienced with them, you would normally back them off by hand with a ratchet or something like that, rather than using
A gun.
a gun. The other thing to take note of is your numbers on them. I know they start at 1 there, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you go to 6, 7, 8, 9, and number 10 at the back there.
And they have to go back in the same place
Yeah,
as well, don't they?
yeah. These caps are put on, and then the heads are laying board with the caps on,
Right.
which is why you've got to put them back in the same place.
Is it the same with the block, or the ones on the bottom? Have
Yes,
they got
they're laying board as well, yeah.
Because they're numbered as well, aren't they?
Yeah, technically speaking, that's the way it should be. I know people do swap caps around, and you can sometimes get away with it, but it's not really the right way of doing it. The other thing we need to check for is that these aren't all scored, because if they're scored badly, it's quite bad news as well.
New head? Or would you just get, can you
New
get,
head, or you can get them laying board. You can
so
actually
you can
buy
get new
caps.
ones of these and
I think
line bore them again?
Burton or somebody actually do a billet cap now, which they reckon bolts straight on and work,
Really?
which goes against everything I was ever taught, but
So how would they know the height of everything? To
they must just machine them to a specific size. And I've seen people use them and they get away with them.
Oh, right.
But I was always taught if the housings were worn, you'd have to get them
Redone, line
welded up and laying board, or what they tend to do is you would machine that face there, which would close the hole up and then line board it around again.
Oh, right,
Know what I mean?
Yeah. So you,
That's what you tend to do with blocks. When the blocks need line board, you machine the caps, which closes the hole, makes the hole sort of oval, and then the machine them out round again. But of course, it moves your centre line very slightly.
Do you put like a grinding tool in, or a boring bar?
Be a boring bar.
Boring bar.
Yeah, it's a boring bar.
Are we all right so far?
All right, so far.
That's good.
Yeah, all them look fine. Right, so that groove I was on about is...
Oh, there.
There
Quite
it
a
is
big
there,
groove as
yeah.
well, isn't it? Quite
Yeah.
a big.
That's why that should always go at the top. That one was actually there. It was like quarter past. Should always go at the top.
the
like
top.
that, yeah.
So its highest points on oil can,
Yeah.
in theory, get past it.
No, yeah, that's exactly it. This is obviously stood wrong quite well, I think, this engine, by the looks of it. But as long as we're not through any deep pitting in there, which it doesn't look like, I think they'll polish up fine. Pull the bearings off. Them bearings are normally okay.
What to reuse?
Yeah, they're normally
Really?
okay, yeah.
They'll be swimming in oil as well. aren't
Yeah, once we've given the wash out, we'll have a look at them, but I think they'll probably be okay. Thing is, they're a special bearing as well, and having the groove in. A normal bearing would probably be 6 or 7 quid. Well, them having the groove in for the circlip, I don't know how much
20,
they would
30
be.
quid maybe.
I would think so. I would hazard a guess at that. So that's what calms out. So we're now left with the hydraulic lifters. And they're probably original, the IAA, which were original Ford IAA.
Would you reuse them or replace them?
I'll probably replace them. See,
Right.
there's no oil at all left in that one there.
Right.
There's no oil at all. I'll probably, for the price of them, I would replace them.
See, this is all new to me. I've never done anything like this before, so...
Yeah, all these are empty, so it's obviously stood around quite a while for them to be empty.
Sometimes when you start a Cosworth engine, they're quite
And
tappy.
they're rattly, yeah.
That's because these aren't full
Yeah,
of
what
oil.
happens is the oil comes through, there's an oil hole in there. See the oil hole? That's out your main oil gallery,
Oh, yeah.
through the head.
Uh-huh.
And it fills the hydraulic lifter through that
right.
groove, through that hole, and it fills the lifter up
With oil.
with oil.
I can smell old oil. Can you smell the old oil in
I
it?
haven't got much sense of smell left,
Have
but
you not?
I can't smell it.
It smells like dirty old oil, doesn't it?
Now you strip some engines, and if they're really old engines, you strip them and they stink of gas, so you think you've got a gas leak.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so all them are soft. I would change them as a matter of
Right.
course anyway. Why wouldn't you when you're into
Yeah,
it?
aye. Well, do you know what it is, Gordon, honestly, like I say, I've never done this before, so I don't know what I would replace and what I wouldn't. What's best to keep original, and do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll measure these up as well, because Cosworth in the wisdom did oversize a few of these, and you could get a 10th of oversized bucket,
Right.
which I don't believe you can get now. I've only ever seen maybe 2 in all the years I've been doing it, and they used to stamp it on the back of the head. There's nothing stamped on this head, so I'm pretty sure they'll be standard, but
Standard
we will check
size.
them. Yeah, we will
So what's
check
in
them.
here, like a spring?
Yeah, I can show you one in bits if you
Oh,
want.
I'll have a look.
I have got a machine for stripping them and cleaning them out. Oh, there's one stripped actually, but we'll strip one of yours.
Alright. Let's come out and see what you're doing.
So you just put it into there.
In like a
And
cup.
basically what we're going to do, we're just going to pump oil into it, and it'll just blow,
Oh, right.
blow the inside out of it. You must make sure you cover it, otherwise it'll hit the roof.
Whoa.
That's it out there now. So all you've got is you've got 2 little plungers and a spring and a ball bearing.
The oil
So
looks quite
that's-
clean, doesn't it?
Well, that's clean oil.
Oh,
I've just
right,
pumped
what
in.
you've
Yeah,
put-
that's.
aha.
See how it's pumping oil out?
Yeah.
So I've just
Yep.
pumped clean oil into it. And then you've got a spring. And there's a little ball bearing, I think, somewhere. Or maybe there's not.
So do you not
The
really use
pressure's
this
pushing
machine now then? to
Never
rebuild
used
them?
it. Never used it for. Well, in the 6 years since I took over, I've never used it.
Put new lifters in.
Yeah, you just. When hydraulic lifters were sort of new technology, they were quite expensive. But now that everything uses them, because basically they're pretty much just a VW lifter, that's all.
Really?
That's pretty much all they are.
Are they
Just a
kind of just standard size?
Yeah, they're just a standard lifter. People say they're not the same as VW, but in our catalogues they're listed for VW and the Cosworth under the same listing. So
Well, you might have to send it to RS tax. It's quite about half the price for the VW
yeah,
ones.
Yeah. So that's all
Ah,
it's
that's
inside
quite
them.
interesting, that mine.
It's just a little hydraulic plunge. That's all it is. And put them back together, you just push them back in. Sometimes a bit hard to get in. Oh, you can straight in that one.
That's just rebuild.
Yeah, that's
So,
it back together.
aye.
So you would strip them and you would wash them out, get rid of all
Measure
the
them or whatever.
oil and sludge out the inside of them, and put them back together.
Uh-huh.
But to be honest, I would
Buy some new ones.
just buy new ones.
I'm going to have to hide the bank statements from our last for a while when I buy all these pistons and lifters and head bolts and stuff.
You've just hit the nail on the head, haven't you?
Oh,
Though
wow.
Cosworth tax, it's we'll get a bigger dish just to keep up bits in. So if you weren't familiar with these, you would keep them lined up, but we know where they go. You've got it on video
You,
as well.
I was going to say you do, I don't. So this was number 1,
Yeah, number 1.
6 to
One.
10.
Yeah, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10
Right.
at the back. Right, so we're going to take them valves out now. Cosworths can be a little bit of a swine to strip, but we'll take the machine, we'll have a go. Right, so this is basically just a valve lifter, just for stripping heads. So you set your angle.
All right, so you're angling the table to get the same angle.
to get the valve.
So in theory that should be flat.
Yes. You can clamp the head down at 10 just to
Keep hold of it.
keep hold of it, yeah. A little bit of a tap. There you go. Then as if by magic somebody's pinched me magnet off the end there. So say that's your two collets, which hold your valve in.
Do you get new ones of those with
No,
valves?
no, you
So
just
we'll have to keep hold of them.
reuse them, yeah. So we'll just stick them in the magnet there for now.
So you've just been seeing now that we've took the tension off the springs, we can now sit it flat on its face and
basically once you get your cams out, your valves is all flat, so we can sit it on its face without fear of bend anything. So we'll just lift all them out and put them in the box.
Could you reuse them springs?
Yeah, springs generally go again.
And obviously them washers at the top, but we reuse them.
Yeah, the caps, collets,
The
everything
caps.
you can reuse. The only worry you've sometimes got with springs is if the engine's stood for a long time in a certain position with the valves fully open, that may have been compressed for the last 10 years. You don't know how long the engines lay around. That's sometimes the only worry. If we were getting a head in just for a straightforward recon, you would generally just use the springs again. But that's presuming it had just come out of a running car, which it failed for some reason.
What about valves? Get new valves or reuse
Valves,
them?
normally you would recut the valves and just reuse them.
Right.
If they're good, we'll visually have a look at them. Problem with these exhaust valves are a sodium filled valve in the exhaust side, and I believe they're about 40 quid each.
What, the valves?
Yeah,
On the exhaust side?
on the exhaust side. Inlet ones probably aren't so bad.
So that's 8 valves I would need for the exhaust?
Yeah. Right, so what we're going to check now, we're going to check the valve gates, which are shot.
Are they?
Yeah. Stick a fresh pair of gloves on.
Oh, because you can feel it rocking.
Yeah, they
Go
should
on,
be quite a snug fitting.
Right.
Which is, it's nothing unusual on a Cosworth, to be honest. I'm not even going to get them gloves on. Oh, my hands are sweaty. Yeah, so they're well shot.
That's got maybe a milli of movement on, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's got quite a bit. The valves look pretty good. They've been sitting reasonably well. But I'm expecting all them to be the same. Yeah.
If we didn't change that, you would get smoke, wouldn't you?
You'll get smoke, yeah.
Because the oil would get through into the
The
bores.
oil would run down. It would run down your valve stem, down here, which you can see it probably has been, to be honest. There was oil on there. So it would run down your valve stem, straight into your cylinder. And
Burn
it
the
would
oil.
just burn, yeah.
A lot of movement on them, isn't
Yeah, a
there?
hell of a lot. So we'll keep them lined up. Normally, you will keep them lined up if we're just going to lap them back in, but this is going to get valve gauge and it's going to get the seats cut, so to be honest, there's no real point in keeping them lined up. Yeah. I've actually heard valve gauges rattling. Sometimes get a rattle off them when they're really bad.
Really?
And they are quite bad. Yeah, we can see there's oil down them stems. So the valve stem seals have probably went hard anyway.
Mate, I'm glad I came here. Honestly, stuff like this, me in my garage, I wouldn't know how to check this.
Yeah.
I would have just...
You've got the same on the inlets.
Uh-huh.
So it's going to want a full set of gates. Quite often you find it's only the exhaust gates that's worn, but it's a full set. They've been sitting really well, to be honest. See how clean the face is of the valve. I would say these inlet valves will probably just buff them off and lap them in. We'll have to cut the seats after we put the gates in.
Would you recommend getting the head sorted first, this bit, then
Yeah,
getting the back?
I would get the welding done first, yeah. And then we can do all the machine work in one go.
So would you put new seats in here?
No, you leave your seats,
them.
you just recut the seats.
So how much would you take off the seat? Just
enough to true it up.
4th hour or something, maybe?
Just as little as possible.
Right.
You obviously fit your new guide, and then I can possibly show you. I can leave that until we do the head if you want.
Well, we'll leave it, we'll do the head.
We'll do the head, yeah.
How do the valve guides come out? Do they just press out?
Yeah, you want a little bit of heat on the head, so even through the hot wash is normally enough to get the head nice and warm, and then you just use a proper valve guide drift to drift them out.
So you get the
Same
head to
again.
about 50 or 60 degrees C or something?
The tank's up to about 65, so they come out where you can kind of just about pick them up, but they are quite warm. And same for
just
putting
knock
them
them out.
back in. Same for putting them back in.
Warm the head up to put them back in,
Yeah.
then knock them in.
Yeah, warm the head up and then fit them.
Right.
A lot of people put the valve gauge in the freezer and stuff like that to really chill the gauge right down, and heat the head up. Problem being, as soon as you start to knock it in, the gauge just goes warm anyway.
Right. Right, that's it, fellas. Gordon, thanks so much. Honestly, mate, I've really enjoyed watching you take that engine to bits, and I've learned so much. I'm going to leave some of the bits here. The only bit I'm taking today is the crank, so we'll come back up to see Gordon hopefully really soon.
Yeah.
I'll find out what pistons I need for the engine. I'm going to do some homework. Yeah, again, mate, thanks a lot. I will leave. Do you want us to leave? You don't really want any contact information there?
I'm not really fussed, to be honest. I've got more than enough work. I'm not looking for work. I'm doing it because I love Cosworths.
Right.
I'm in the RS Guns Club, have been for years. And I love me Fords.
Right, yeah, mate, thanks so much for doing it.
No problem at all.
Thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll catch you on the next one. Spot on, mate. Thanks a lot.
Mate.
Thanks a lot.
No bother at all.